Imagine this. You are in the midst of absolute glamour. The camera flashes blind your eyes as you walk down an immaculate red carpet. Celebrities pass by you, their clothes shining like stars in the galaxy. The sound of voices and laughter echoes around you, but there is something underlying this perfection, a silence you cannot ignore. It's not the kind of silence that brings peace. It's the silence of an unasked question, of something important, left aside. Have you ever wondered what fuels this dream machine we call Hollywood? I mean, not just what we see, the glamour, the movies, the awards, but what really lies behind all of it. There is a fine line between what this industry represents and the impact it has on what we believe. What happens when one of the most powerful industries in the world seems to ignore or even ridicule spirituality? Invite God to stay in your life. Let's explore this together. Hollywood, throughout its history, has been built on the idea of storytelling, of capturing the essence of the human experience. But ironically, there is something that often gets left out of these narratives: faith. It's curious, isn't it? In a world where billions of people find meaning in spirituality, how can it be that an industry with such global reach often treats faith as something irrelevant, outdated, or even the target of jokes? What does this say about our modern culture? Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to point fingers or condemn anyone. Hollywood has produced incredible works that inspire us, make us laugh, cry, and reflect. But there are also moments when it seems like we are watching a show that deliberately rejects something fundamental to so many people around the world. For example, did you know that in just the last 10 years, the search for spirituality has grown by more than 30% among young adults? Despite this, in many of the industry's major moments, such as award shows, blockbuster films, or celebrity interviews, mentions of God, or any kind of acknowledgement of faith, have almost disappeared. Why? Is it a conscious choice, a trend, or is there something deeper worth uncovering? As we walk down the red carpet of this fictional evening, I want us to think about it, not just as spectators, but as people who also have stories, values, and beliefs. Let's go beyond the lights, beyond the cameras. Let's discover what really lies at the heart of Hollywood and what it means for all of us. Stay with me, because the answers might surprise you. And who knows, maybe at the end of this journey you will see this fascinating universe in a completely different way. Now imagine what happens behind the curtains. That red carpet glamour we just explored is just the tip of the iceberg. Inside the big studios, the lights are always on. Directors shout orders, actors enter and exit characters as if by magic, and screenwriters spend sleepless nights crafting stories that promise to capture hearts. But here's an intriguing question. Of all the stories Hollywood chooses to tell, why are so few genuinely exploring spirituality? Think about it. Hollywood is, above all, a factory of narratives. It is the place where heroes are created, where villains challenge us, and where we can lose ourselves in worlds of fantasy and drama. However, when it comes to faith, there seems to be a reluctance. Why? Maybe it's out of fear of polarizing audiences, or perhaps because spirituality requires a depth that challenges commercial conventions. But does this really reflect society? I'll give you an example. In recent years, we have seen a resurgence of independent productions that dared to touch on spiritual themes. Films like The Chosen and Unplanned have reached millions of people, often surpassing commercial expectations. These projects prove that there is an audience hungry for stories that address something greater, something that goes beyond what we can see and touch. Isn't that fascinating? At the same time, the big studios seem to hesitate when faith appears. In high-budget productions, it is often portrayed superficially, or worse, as an object of ridicule. A recent study showed that more than 60% of the films released by major studios between 2010 and 2020 treated religion as something comical or outdated. What does this say about the way the industry views something that is so central to billions of people around the world? And here's another curiosity. While Hollywood often avoids spirituality, platforms like TikTok are full of young people exploring their faith in creative ways. From inspirational messages to theological debates, this generation is using social media to connect with something greater. Isn't that a paradox? In a world where spirituality is flourishing on small screens, why is it absent on the big ones? The truth is that stories that touch the heart, that resonate with the deepest parts of us, have power. They don't just entertain, they transform. And this is where Hollywood needs to decide: continue ignoring something so intrinsic to the human experience, or embrace these stories and create something truly unforgettable. I know it may seem complicated. We are talking about a world driven by profit, trends, and often the fear of controversies. But the question remains, what if Hollywood decides to give space to authentic spiritual stories? What impact would that have? What kind of world could we see reflected on these giant screens? Think about that as we continue our journey, because in the end, the stories we choose to tell say more about us than we imagine. Now, I want you to imagine yourself in a moment of crisis. Not the kind of crisis we see in movies, with heroes in capes and explosions every second, but something real. Imagine an event that challenges all certainties, a natural disaster, a global pandemic, or even a personal tragedy. What do you feel? Where do you look for answers? It is in these moments that many people, even those who are not particularly religious, begin to reflect on greater issues. Spirituality, often relegated to the background of our everyday lives, gains new relevance. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, research showed that more than 40% of people in the United States turned to prayer or meditation practices, even among those who previously did not identify with any specific religion. This tells us something profound. In times of uncertainty, we seek something greater than ourselves. But what does this have to do with Hollywood? Well, consider the role that this industry plays in shaping cultural narratives. During global crises, the media and entertainment have the power to shape the way we process these events. Think of films like Schindler's List, which brought a profound reflection on humanity in times of war, or even more recent productions like Nomadland, which explores human resilience in times of economic adversity. Now, imagine if this approach were applied to explore themes of spirituality in times of crisis. What would a film addressing the impact of faith, or the absence of it, in a world devastated by challenges look like? And more importantly, how would this influence the audience watching, many of whom are facing their own personal crises? The problem, however, is that Hollywood often avoids addressing these issues with the depth they deserve. Many films address crises in a spectacular manner: explosions, chaos, action, but fail to explore the human side that truly resonates with us, the search for meaning, connection, and hope. That's why, during the pandemic, while major studios delayed releases, independent platforms began to shine, bringing small but powerful stories about faith, loss, and recovery. And here's something fascinating. While major productions tend to ignore spirituality, there is a global increase in the production of content that authentically explores this theme. Series, podcasts, and even social media influencers are filling this gap. But the question remains: why does Hollywood, with all its resources and reach, seem so disconnected from this universal human need? Perhaps the answer lies in the fear of alienating audiences. In such a divided world, there is a hesitation to address topics that might be considered polarizing. But isn't there an opportunity here? After all, stories of faith don't need to be sermons. They can be deeply human, exploring spirituality in ways that everyone, regardless of beliefs, can relate to. and if the true power of Hollywood resided not only in its ability to entertain us, but to remind us what it means to be human. In times of crisis, these stories could be a source of comfort, connection, and above all, hope. Because in the end, that's what we all seek, isn't it? A thread of hope that guides us through the chaos. As we continue on this journey, I want you to think about this. How have you reacted in your own moments of crisis? And what kind of story would you like to see on screens to reflect that? The answer might be closer than you think. First, we ask you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any moments of reflection. Like the video and leave your opinion in the comments. It is very important to us. Now imagine a place where millions of voices intersect every day, where ideas are exchanged in a matter of seconds, and where anyone can share their perspective with the world. Welcome to social media, the new global stage. Here, spirituality and technology meet in ways that Hollywood has rarely explored. Social media is not just a space for memes, dance, and heated debates. They have become a vibrant platform for deep discussions, especially about faith and spirituality. Over the past decade, we have seen a significant increase in the number of content creators dedicated to exploring existential issues, sharing spiritual practices, or simply offering messages of hope. And this is impacting an entire generation in ways that few could have predicted. For example, did you know that hashtags related to spirituality, such as Trip Faith Talk or Spiritual Awakening, accumulate billions of views on TikTok and Instagram? It's incredible how young people from all over the world are connecting with topics that go far beyond the superficial. And the most interesting thing is how these discussions are not restricted to a single belief. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, agnostics, all are contributing to a global dialogue about what it means to find purpose in a constantly changing world. Now think about this. While Hollywood still hesitates to fully embrace spirituality in its productions, social media is taking on that role. They offer a space for personal stories, often ignored by major studios, to be shared without filters. A recent example is the movement of young influencers who use platforms like YouTube and Twitch to talk about how faith has helped them overcome challenges such as anxiety, depression, or loss. They are real, raw, and inspiring stories. But of course, social media also has its complicated side. With the anonymity and the speed at which information circulates, it is easy for debates to turn into divisions or for spiritual messages to be distorted. After all, where there is freedom, there is also the risk of misunderstandings or extremism. Even so, this digital environment brought something that Hollywood couldn't achieve: accessibility. Anyone, regardless of where they are, can find a community, a voice, or even a new sense of purpose in their life. And here lies the paradox. Why does Hollywood, with all its resources, seem so disconnected from this movement? Is it a lack of courage to explore such complex themes? Or is it that executives do not see the potential of uniting technology and spirituality in impactful narratives? Imagine a film that captures the essence of these digital interactions, showing how ordinary people transform lives through simple messages on their networks. Think about the impact such a production could have, especially in a world where human connection is more necessary than ever. Meanwhile, social media continues to lead this revolution. They are shaping not only how we communicate, but also how we see and live spirituality. And who knows, maybe Hollywood can learn something from this new generation of digital storytellers. So I ask, if you could share a message of faith, hope, or meaning, what would it be like? Because in the end, what really matters is not the size of the platform, but the power of the story you choose to tell. We have reached the end of this journey, but before we say goodbye, I want you to imagine something. Think of a packed movie theater where the only thing connecting everyone present is the story unfolding on the screen. Laughter, tears, whispers of admiration. It's as if, for a brief moment, the world outside disappears, and each person sees themselves reflected in that narrative. Now imagine if that story were yours. What message would you like to leave? Hollywood, with all its power of creation and influence, faces an important choice. Continue with narratives that capture only the surface of the human experience, or venture into deeper territories where questions about faith, meaning, and connection are not only explored, but celebrated. And we, as viewers, have a vital role in this process. What we choose to watch, support, and share sends a powerful message to the industry. Think of the stories that have shaped generations. From epics like Ben-Hur to modern dramas like The Jack, there is a common thread: the ability to touch the human heart. But while these productions have impacted us, they are exceptions. How many stories remain untold? How many lives could be transformed if these narratives were brought to light? What inspires me is that we are seeing changes, even if they are small. Independent producers, digital platforms, and even some major productions are beginning to recognize the universal appeal of spiritual and human themes. The audience wants more than just entertainment. They want to connect, reflect, and perhaps leave a movie session with something greater than what they came in with. And this is where each of our responsibilities comes into play. Not just Hollywood, but us as individuals. What stories are we willing to value? What values do we want to see reflected in the culture we consume? Because in the end, the stories we choose to support say a lot about who we are and what we believe in. In closing, I want to leave one final reflection. Spirituality is not something restricted to temples, books, or specific practices. It is everywhere, in the way we live, in the moments when we find hope in chaos, and especially in the way we choose to connect with each other. And if the giant screens of Hollywood decide to amplify this, what impact could we cause together? I want to thank you for accompanying me this far. It was a privilege to share this reflection with you. If something in this video resonated with you, or if you have your own ideas on how Hollywood could embrace deeper narratives, leave your comment. I would love to hear your opinion. And of course, if you want to explore more about these topics or continue this journey with me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, we can continue discovering the stories that truly matter. Thank you very much for being here. See you next time.